is our topic for today. Like we mentioned before, OSHA gives us a little flexibility in our topics. The overall idea is to be able to create a culture of safety. And since a lot of people are getting ready to have Pinterest ideas and home projects and all these cool things, so you're going to break out the power tools, I thought it would be a good idea to have a little update on the safety in regards to those things. So today we're going to talk about home project safety. Dangers abound on the home front, causing as many as 20,000 deaths, 7 million disabling injuries, and 20 million hospital trips in the U.S. each year. Making sure that we're prepared is the first thing that we need to do. Safety is something that a lot of people end up in a reactive culture, and we've talked about that several times. You need to be proactive when it comes to safety. 90% plus of accidents are preventable, yet we have them all the time. A lot of times it's just because we're not really paying attention to what we're doing, and it ends up in a result of an accident. The reason this is important for you, even though we're at an employer, because whenever you are at home and you are doing activities that end up in a result of you being hurt, it ends up affecting your workplace. So this is something that needs to carry over from work to home and to be safe at all places. Today we're going to talk about the 10 most dangerous power tools based on Forbes' list is how we're going to get that information, with some stories, obviously, of, people will pay attention when you're talking about yucky things usually, so we're going to have some stories with the power tools, some home project safety tips, ladder safety, and painting safety. So we're going to move through this relatively quick, but if you have questions, please do ask. The Forbes report of the 10 most dangerous power tools. Power nailers. Alright, a lot of people have experience with these. They make short work of framing, but the power nailers send 37,000 people each year to emergency rooms. So even though you can go to the store and rent one of these little dolls, please be smart about it. They're very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. The next one, chainsaws. A lot of us have chainsaws, and we think it's just a great tool. But what happens with chainsaws is there's 36,000 people sent to the emergency room a year, including this police officer from New Hampshire who was trimming branches at his home in November when his chainsaw bounced back into his chest. He called 911, but he was dead by the time help arrived. Usually when you get hurt with a chainsaw, it's because of a bounce. Woods are all different densities, and you hit a knot on something and it'll end up with a bounce because you think you're moving along fine and all of a sudden it jerks back at you. That's when you have an accident, hit yourself in the chest, the leg, the arm, whatever it might be. Table saws. A lot of us, end up with table saws. Buy those for our dads for Father's Day, that kind of thing, so we can see if he can kill us all. A Florida man was among the 29,000 a year who ended up in the ER thanks to this tool. He was using a table saw when a board snagged in the blade and kicked back like a rocket. It tore off his middle finger, off his left hand, and his suit against Home Depot was unsuccessful. People a lot of times will go to Lowe's, Home Depot, and they'll buy these tools, and then they'll say, "You all didn't give me the information that I needed to be safe with that." Well, it's not going to work when you try to blame it back on them. That's what I'm telling you, because they've got notes all over everything you buy that says they are not responsible for those injuries. So, when you're ignorant about stuff, it's going to be your own problem. Okay? Snow blowers. We don't have a lot of these around here. Last year, we had a really big winter, and people ended up working with these. 5,700 patients a year go to the ER because of snow blowers, with 600 finger amputations and 19 deaths since 1992. One victim from Colorado, an Avalanche player, Joe Sakic, suffered 3 broken fingers in a December 2008 accident. So things that seem real simple, self-contained, can still be very dangerous. Circular saws. 10,600 people a year end up in the ER because of these tools. Unfortunately, one California carpenter didn't make it that far. He was cutting a purlin for a remodeling project while standing on a ladder, obviously a problem there, supporting himself on a piece of ceiling drywall, which we all know is real sturdy. He had the saw safety guard pinned back. People do that all the time. The drywall gave way and the saw slashed his jugular. He died a few minutes later. Not a good choice, obviously. Riding lawnmowers. This time of year we all have these, right? We've got these going because it makes life easy. I love mowing lawn. 37,000 people a year end up in the hospital with 55 deaths. In 2008 in Grand Junction, Colorado, landscape worker drove a mower too close to a tree, ended up with his neck pinned against a branch. Neighbors freed him with a chainsaw. He arrived at the hospital in a coma, but survived. Now, you think that sounds crazy, but those of you who have been here for a long time, we had a similar type of accident. It happened right here down in our orchard. Heather, do you remember that? And there was a worker, and he was driving along on the tractor down there, and all of a sudden got himself lodged in the trees because the tractor, the trees, and he was focusing on the ground, ended up colliding with a tree down there, a person who had worked here, and ended up with quite an injury from it too. So things do happen, and you've got to be careful. Everybody has those neat little ZTR, zero turn radius mowers nowadays, and those are zippy little things. I was reading the news the other day. This safety stuff is just crazy, but I was reading the news, and in a national park in, I think it was Wyoming, one of the workers was mowing along like a 12,000 foot drop, right? And he was on one of those ZTR mowers. Now that all adds up to disaster from the get-go, because when those mowers that are ZTR, when the weight starts pulling on them, it doesn't matter who or what you are, you cannot pull it out of a turn at that point. And he was mowing along there, ended up trying to turn, and ended up boom, off the ledge with the whole mower and everything, and it killed him. So you've got to be careful. Zero turn radius mowers are designed for flat ground, okay? Don't be risky on those. All right. Power drills. Probably everybody in here has used a power drill at one time or another. 5,800 people a year in the emergency room. In one particularly horrible incident, a 25-year-old man fell from a ladder. See the continuing ladder, there you go. Fell from a ladder while using a drill to install lights for a New Year's Day celebration. The spinning bit entered through his jaw and skull bones and tore up an artery. He died after inhaling his own blood. Oh, crazy, but it happens. These are reports that go to OSHA. Backhoes. Another thing is you can actually go up the road and you can rent for a day. Now that's just crazy, but you can go to an equipment rental and you can rent a backhoe and drive it into your yard and commence to digging. Now for a lot of people that sounds like a dream day, and people do that without any prior knowledge at all. So these hydraulic monsters are now available to anyone. Even the pros aren't immune from disaster. Backhoes kill an average of 38 construction workers per year. Not a toy. It looks like a great toy, but it's not. Air compressors, something everybody has. I think it's really simple. 2,400 injuries a year. In October, an Austrian worker was trying to clean out a concrete pumping tube with compressed air when a clamp slipped off the fitting. When the clamp slipped off and a fitting flew through the air, hitting him in the head, and he died 2 weeks later. There's a lot of pressure on an air compressor, and it doesn't matter what size it is, it's got a lot of pressure on it, so you've got to be careful with that. People think it's just fun. You know, you've seen kids, and we use those for things that they're not meant to be used for, spraying each other with the air hose, you know, and filling up our toys in the summer for the pool, that type of thing. But you've got to be careful with that, because if you ever have a wound and you run that strong air by it, you can very quickly create a hematoma under your skin, and that's an air bubble that then can cause you trouble later on, okay, when it goes through your system. So you've got to be careful with these things. Wood chippers. We've heard some of these disasters about wood chippers even around here lately. Only 3 per year on average die using these tools, but their size and power doesn't mean it doesn't take much for the worst to happen. In November, a 14-year-old high school freshman in Virginia was using a shovel to push debris into the chipper when he was pulled into the machine and killed. Now, just a few months ago, up in the east, a man who has this business and his son, who was I think 8 or 9, were working on something, shoving tree limbs in there, and the man turned around and all of a sudden his son went sucked in there. So these things have a lot of force. They're not anything to play with at all. Okay. Safety tips when you're working on home projects. Everybody do home projects on occasion? Pull out the glue gun, pull out the clamps, this type of thing. You know, at least to start them, not necessarily do you finish them. Start them. One thing I want to tell you is that you need to make sure that you clamp your work. You know, carpenters say measure twice, cut once. You know, it's the same kind of thing. Being safe at the beginning is what you need to think about. You think you can hold on to something whenever you're running a saw over it, but you don't realize the force that's going to be there whenever you hit the saw to the wood or whatever it is that you're cutting. So you've got to make sure and clamp the work. It's not that hard to do. Clamps are relatively cheap, and you just need to have them. If you're going to be cutting anything, you need to clamp it. Make sure that you stay awake. Don't work on things into the middle of the night like people tend to do. Get excited about a new Pinterest project and you stay up all night. Not a good idea, and people do it. So make sure that you use goggles. Goggles are really important, yet people just don't tend to put them on. So I encourage you to make sure that you have goggles around that you can put on. More safety tips. Don't disable the safety mechanism. We were talking about that on the circular saws, and people have them on table saws. And probably a lot of you right now, truth be known, if you have these tools at home, have ripped the guards right off of them because you find them cumbersome. Okay? Well, the guards are there for a reason. They didn't just do that to annoy all of us. They put them on there for a reason to keep you safe. So make sure that you don't disable the safety on that. You're just looking for a disaster. Even if it takes you 3 extra seconds to do what you need to do to use the safety mechanism, it's worth it. You need to think about it. Beware the ricochet. Things jump. Power tools have a lot of friction. They move at really, really high speeds, whether it's a drill. You know, you can be using a drill and you pop over with it, and what happens? Zoom! New hole right through the wall, right? So you've got to be careful with that. And things will ricochet and jump around. The last one on here, number 6, is used only as directed. That's a big one, because we use things that are not meant to be tools as tools all the time, right? My dad the other day was trying to hammer a pin on the hay rake into the back of his truck, and he's looking around, you know, and I'm like, how about a hammer, Dad? He just starts kicking it, you know, and I'm like, oh, great. So make sure that you use things only as directed. It's not really good to improvise whenever you're using tools, because something could very easily happen. You know, one mishap with a power tool, you're minus some fingers, you know, these awful disasters we've talked about, it's just not worth it. Organizing your tools, another thing that's hard for us. If you know you're going to do a project, okay, let's talk about this. You get something from Walmart and you take it home, and it's got these parts, and it's got instructions. How many of you read the instructions? Very few people actually do. Some people will lay out the instructions, they'll go get a screwdriver like it says, they'll go get a hammer, they'll go get goggles, whatever it is, but then there's most people who are like me, and I just throw it all out there and start putting it together, and when I hit a glitch, then I'll turn over and look at the instructions on it, okay? That's not the best way to do things. So if you organize your tools, now, there are men who have very organized tools. How many of you fellas, women are like that, where every tool has its own spot? Yeah, oh my gosh. Wow, I mean, those pegboards, and there's an outline of the tool drawn on the pegboard, so it goes in the exact spot, okay? That's my husband, drives me nuts. What can you do with number 5 on the ratchet? I'm like, I have no idea. So, you know, organizing your tools, though, is a good thing for us to do, because then you have everything you need right there within reach. When you're running a saw, running a drill, and all of a sudden I needed such and such, and you turn away from it to go grab something else, that's when a disaster is likely to happen, okay? So organizing your tools that you're needing for the project is very important. Put them in a location where they can be easily reached, laid out on a project table, okay? Using the right ladder safely. This is a big, big issue. Tons of accidents happen because of ladders. Why do accidents happen because of ladders? Any suggestions, ideas? Go too high, reach to the side, all of those are things that happen. The on that too. Using the inappropriate ladder, not using the right one that needs to be used for it. Uneven surface, oh my land. Ladders are just quite dangerous, we'll put it that way. Accidents happen because of ladders all the time. People should have to have a license to use a ladder. Okay, here's some ladder safety tips for everyone that I want you, just a few minutes. I think you'll find it valuable.
In the final section of this presentation, we're going to take a look at some do's and don'ts of ladder safety. Let's assume you've chosen the right ladder, adjusted the height or configuration if necessary, inspected it for any mechanical problems, and now you're ready to get to work. Check for overhead clearance and ensure there are no live electrical wires. Wear shoes with clean, non-skid soles. Set the ladder on a firm, level surface so it won't shift or sway. Never place it on slippery surfaces. On soft ground, use a board at least 6 inches wide under the legs to keep them from sinking. Extension ladders must be placed so that they lean at a 75-degree angle. If a steeper angle is used, the ladder may tip back when you climb on it. And if the ladder is placed too far out, the feet may slip out. An easy way to determine the right slope is to use a 4-to-1 ratio between the length of the ladder and the setback of the base. For example, a 12-foot ladder must be set back 3 feet to be safe. Both rails of an extension ladder must be fully supported with at least 18 inches of extra space on either side. Extension ladders have a front side and back side and should never be climbed from the back side. Keep your body centered on the ladder while working and leave one hand on the ladder whenever possible. As a general rule, keep your belt buckle between the rails to prevent losing your balance and never overreach. Always get off and move the ladder whenever necessary. Tying off the ladder at the top or staking the legs can offer a higher level of protection when the ladder will be in one place for some time. A-frame ladders must be in the fully open position with the hinges and lock assemblies firmly secured. Always face the ladder when you climb and never jump off a ladder or skip any rungs. Never position a ladder in front of a door or where it can get easily bumped. Haul heavy tools and materials up on a line instead of trying to carry them up the ladder. Never allow more than one person on an extension ladder. 2 people may climb on opposite sides of a little giant A-frame ladder as long as the weight capacity is not exceeded. Don't climb a closed A-frame ladder. Don't leave a ladder unattended. And finally, always use common sense when working with ladders. False security can lead to carelessness that can cause serious injury. It's important to keep in mind that the person ultimately responsible for your safety is you. Even the safest ladder can be dangerous when proper precautions aren't taken in its use.
Okay. Ladders, I just cannot tell you enough the dangers that come with ladders, and people just, I don't know, I think they just focus on what they're doing and end up not really paying attention to what's happening, obviously, and end up with a disaster on a ladder. But, you know, through the years at home, you know, with my brothers, I've seen homemade ladders. You know, people will make ladders out of everything, and we're guilty of it. I know down at Dick, you know, the table serves as a ladder sometimes here on campus, you know, a rolling chair. Now, how brilliant is that? But we find ourselves, you know, grab a chair and, you know, Heather, hold on to this, I'm going to climb up, you know, and we'll climb up on a rolling chair. You know, it's just dumb, really, it is. But we do that, you know, and we're risking an accident every single time we make those choices. And what you need to think about is that your personal safety, you're risking really hurting yourself, but you're also risking something that could affect all the people sitting in the room with you right here, because it all works together as far as our insurance is concerned for the organization. So we need to think about these things. Ladders, when I go out and look at business and industry and walk around and see people doing things, it's ladders a lot of times that are going to cause the problems. And, ladders do wear out. People don't believe that, I think that I probably have my grandpa's ladder at home that was used 180 years ago, and still, if it opens up, we use it. But, you don't need to keep, some things do wear out. You don't need to keep them forever. You've got to be smart about it. The man who was dragging the toolbox and the drill up the ladder with him, that happens all the time, all the time. There's another place that ladders come into play with people dragging things up with them that's typically during certain times of the year. Anybody have any idea what I'm talking about?
Christmas lights.
Okay, Christmas lights is one, but there's another one. Deer hunting. People use deer stands, and they carry guns up those ladders, and they tote them up with them. And disasters happen with that. So, it's just crazy, but to be able to simply put something around, a rope around it and drag it up is pretty easy to do. But people don't stop and take the extra 30 seconds of time to do that. And they end up falling off, losing their balance, and heaven forbid, they end up really permanently hurt. So you need to think about these things whenever it comes time to use a ladder. All right? Questions on ladders? 4-to-1 ratio. The next thing we're going to talk about is insulation safety. How many of you have went into your homes and decided it's time to insulate more because you're going to cut down on those bills? This is something that people decide to do on their own. And it's okay to do that. You can buy the insulation at Lowe's, and you can rent the blower, and you can blow that stuff in all you want. All of these things can be done, but you need to be careful with this. So this is just a few-minute video talking to you about insulation safety in case you decide to take on that challenge.
As in all insulation jobs, it is very important to wear appropriate personal protective equipment. You should have goggles or safety glasses, a disposable dust mask, gloves, and sturdy work boots. And carry knives and other sharp tools with their blades retracted or sheathed. At the job site, check in with the job superintendent and look over the work site for readiness. Make sure the hopper is clear of foreign objects, stringy fibers, and plastic packaging. Then, load the hopper with Climate Pro insulation and run the hose into the work area. Start with the hopper filled, but not over full, which can keep the fibers from moving freely and separating properly. Add product to the hopper as needed to prevent it from becoming empty during your installation process. You also need to prepare the site. In new construction, the attic will probably be empty. However, any objects which might interfere with the proper application of the insulation should be removed. If you are working in an attic or under cathedral ceilings, you must be sure that eave vents are not blocked. This can be done with preformed baffles or vent chutes. You may also cut 4 to 6 inch wide pieces of R30 or higher value bat insulation to fit between the joists in front of the vents. Each bat section should completely cover the top plate and form a seal between the top plate and the roof deck. Be sure to leave soffit vents clear, however. This is often done by the bat crew before the ceiling drywall is installed.
Okay, so just being smart about having all the tools you need and being safe about things, once again, is what we're talking about here. People tend to get in a hurry and they don't have the right equipment, and they just think, oh, this can't hurt me, I'm just going to do this, it's pretty simple, and they end up with a disaster. So, attics themselves are kind of dangerous to walk around. I would never dream of going in the attic. I'm just not liking dark places and spiders and that kind of thing. But I can remember as a girl probably about 10 years old, sitting in the living room, and the man who was my stepdad at the time was working in the attic, and the TV was on. There's boom, 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 dong, and he fell right through the ceiling into the living room floor. So, you know, attics can be dangerous. There's little boards up there to walk on, and then there's places not to step, but that, you know, neat little popcorn ceiling doesn't hold him in. It weighs 200 pounds and he ends up on the ground. So it was a giant mess. It's pretty funny because I didn't really like it. But it's like, what? I'm starting to love. Okay, last one out here is painting safety. A lot of us will think that we can paint, and we end up getting things out and we're just going to paint. I'm not the best at that, I tell you now. Jim's awesome at painting. Layla does a great job of painting. Me, not so much, because you really should tape off things before you paint, and that just takes a lot of time. So I'm not the best when it comes to the paint routine, but there's some safety tips for painting as well.
Hi, I'm Debbie Anderson for About.com Home. Painting can be a lot of fun. However, you do have to keep safety in mind. So today I'm going to go over some basic safety tips to make sure that your fun painting project doesn't turn into a trip to the emergency room. When using any type of ladder, always make sure that the ladder's safety mechanisms lock into place prior to use. Double check that the ladder is securely positioned on even and stable ground to prevent tipping and instability while in use. When using any ladder, always remember to climb up the ladder only to the recommended rung for that particular ladder and no further. Should you lose your balance during the project, this prevention step will help keep you on the ladder instead of falling to the ground. Paint product fumes can become very strong without realizing it during a long paint project. If you have a hard time breathing around paint fumes, be sure to wear a respirator mask. For indoor projects, always remember to open a window or turn on a fan to create a well-ventilated area before starting the project. To prevent skin irritation, always remember to put on vinyl gloves before exposing your skin to any paint products. Painter's goggles are also highly recommended for any paint project where the paint has the potential to drop into your eye. If you do get paint in your eye during the project, immediately wash out your eye with cool water for at least 10 minutes, then seek medical attention. Finally, to prevent getting paint in your hair, consider wearing a hat. And there you have it, a few more tips for your next paint job. Thank you for watching. To learn more, please visit us on the web at homegarden.about.com.
I kind of have to laugh because if you put on the goggles, the hat, the respirator mask, and everything else that the girls got going on, my land, it's going to be quite an event for painting, I can tell you that. So, pretty funny. One thing about paint is that we just need to be careful. There are different types of paint. Some paints will wash off very easily. Others can, you know, be permanent types of paint. The fumes are something to keep in mind. Ladders, once again, are your biggest enemy when it comes to painting. Typically, that's your biggest problem, is making sure that you're on the ladder. And I always listen to those things about ladders, and I think, well, why did they put that top step there? If you're not supposed to use it, why is that top step even on those silly things, you know, because it's just a temptation to go one more step higher. So please be cautious whenever you're doing any painting at home. Okay, any questions about your home project safety? Levon sent me some information that was talking about how you can stay safe for summer, talking about barbecuing and summer safety tips, and those are over here. If anybody's interested, you're welcome to pick one up on your way out. Please make sure that you signed in on one of the sign-in sheets, and thank you so much. Have a great summer.